Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. We are being broadcast live tonight on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, and also over in YouTube World. So hello, YouTube. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. This one, thumbs up. And no matter how you are listening to me, make sure you stop in and say hello. And if you are listening later in the archives, send me an email at wildepaisley@gmail.com. That is WILDEPAISLEY@gmail.com. And if you want to support the show, please do so at etsy.com/shop/Monarch Mountain Studio. Or you can hit me up on Patreon. And that's patreon.com/the spaces between. Now, the call line is open tonight, and that number is 213-233-3998. Or if you're across the pond in the UK, it's 44-203-393-2871. And I see in chat Lucky and Ken, Lewis, Daryl, and Ruthie. And y'all are just chatting away, it looks like. And Aussie and Cameron, Deb, Elaine, Ethan, Justin, Sonia, Suzanne, Rotman, Titan, and looks like Ether Archives, Mr. Don's in the house. So hey, I hope everyone...
Lucky's in here too.
Yeah, I said Lucky twice. Oh, hi Lucky, you're in there twice. Alright, oh, I suppose I should put Don on...
Oh.
Hey, look, Don's on there. He had a microphone, but he was just, ghost in the darkness.
There we go. Yeah, okay. Hi!
Hi. So happy weekend, everybody. It's Saturday. I hope you all are just having a joyous quarantine or not working too hard.
Joyous quarantine.
Hey, you never know. It could be fun. I have been crafting with Mini Paisley, so yes, it has been quite fun. Let's see, what did we do? We made brownies the other day? Yeah. And, let's see, what else have we been doing? We've been doing all sorts of things. We run around out, taught her how to throw the frisbee, which has been so much better. Then, oh, yes, I am distorting. Thank you, Lucky. Is that better? Hey, Bomber, nope, you're still there. Thanks, Lucky. Let's see, taught her how to throw the frisbee, which has been a much better experience than playing catch with a ball.
Oh, yes. I can imagine that.
Because she can actually get to me with the frisbee rather than the ball, which was always short, long, or off to one side. So, yeah, it's actually a real game of catch. So, yeah. It's been an adventure, I gotta tell ya. So, how's Mr. Don?
Fine. I may fall asleep halfway through the show, though. I've had a long day.
Yeah, you're one of those essential employees.
Yeah, I'm really getting tired of being called essential, though. I'd rather be non-essential right now. And I mean, even if I got laid off without possibility of unemployment,
yeah,
I'd be okay with it.
You just want to sleep in and go to bed on time, huh?
Well, I'd like to go to bed on time, then I wouldn't have to sleep in.
Are you getting old?
No, not at all. No. I've been told I look the same as I did when I was in high school, except with fur on my face. No.
Weren't you more of a redhead, like,
No.
20 years ago?
No.
I've seen a picture of you. You looked like a redhead.
20 years ago?
30 years ago?
God, it'd have to be more like...
No, it'd be 20... Let's see. I don't know. It was an older picture of you.
I'm almost 50.
I know. Yeah, probably about 25 years ago.
No.
Yeah.
Never had red hair. Nope. I was born a towhead.
And now you're just a graybeard?
Yes. That was nice, yes. Great.
Oh, yeah, he said fur on his face, Lucky. So.
My goodness, Lucky.
Wow.
Oh, boy. Wow.
That escalated. Oh. Let's see. Well, I guess I can't seem to keep my voice regulated because some people can hear me and some people can't. So, well, try that.
It all sounds good to me. So,
Aren't you deaf?
oh gosh, I thought you had a show you were gonna do.
Yeah, I know, but I gotta pick on you too.
I don't get paid enough for this.
I know, right? This is all volunteer. I make wine. Oh, I bottled elderberry wine today.
Oh yes, I still haven't tried any.
You should let it age a little bit more in the bottle.
Like 5 more minutes.
I was gonna say like 2 or 3 months.
Months.
You know, some wine actually you do need to
Let mellow.
yeah. So Lucky says I'm distorting a bit. Bleh. So,
Yeah, you know, apparently I was coming through a little fuzzy on the portal too. So,
Hmm.
but that's internet stuff. That's not us, unfortunately.
Okay. I was gonna say, is there something I should not touch over here to fix that? Bomber, you're funny.
Yeah.
I don't think I could send that stuff in the mail. Unless I suppose elderberry tincture. There's some alcohol content there. So, and then I started birch wine too.
That little bottle of birch.
Oh no
syrup?
no! I got 3 gallons of birch water. And so that's in a carboy right now. And I may need to add some more sugar to it because it tastes a lot like water.
Gee. How much water did you put in it?
None.
So you're just straight fermenting the.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, duh. but you probably should have boiled it for a little bit.
Why?
Because that's how you make syrup.
Well, it's been through minor processing already with reverse osmosis and some other stuff to pull out a lot of the water content. It actually tastes like water. I was really surprised. It was kind of refreshing. I just drank it out of the bucket.
So what are you going to end up with? Like, Zima?
Yeah, the 90s called.
I don't know what you're going for here.
So actually, no, I had some plum syrup that I poured in there.
Going for a White Claw.
Right. Rawr. the is that the drink of cat fights everywhere?
I can't say anything about that.
Ken's brewing beer. That's cool.
He's got almost 64 bottles of beer on the wall.
Is he gonna take one down, pass it around?
No, he wants to put them up so he can stay warm during his winter.
Okay, well, I've got enough booze to keep me warm all winter long. But
that's what happens when you watch The Portal.
So when no, I put a pint of the plum syrup in there to give it some citric acid and some sweetness also.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm gonna, and it's got yeast in it already. But I may add another pint of the plum syrup because there's a lot of sugar already in that plum syrup.
So instead of, because you said you wanted to add some more sugar, so you're talking about using that instead.
Yeah, just because I don't know if you've noticed and been to a store lately, but finding some of the staples like sugar is actually almost hard. It's like people learned how to cook again and bought ingredients instead of Insta food.
Unfortunately, they're still buying beet sugar and not cane sugar. I've heard some really good things about beet sugar. Yes, I know it's GMO, but I gotta tell you, most I have a feeling that even the organics are GMO anymore. Just about, for crying out loud, they're everywhere. Well, organic and GMO doesn't mean the same thing.
Oh, I know.
They're two totally different things.
Oh.
I wish people would could understand that a little better. There's a difference between heirloom and organic and GMO. And there's one more, but anyhow, there's a huge
Hybridization. Hybrid. I only have water in here.
Yeah, you sure that's not
hybridization. Yes.
hybridization? Yes.
Hybridization.
So there's we can go into that too.
So, but yeah, that's a whole nother battle topic conversation. Yeah, we can have later. So, oh, aren't you sweet? They say. No, I don't. I do need to add sugar to my wine in order to make it ferment. Otherwise, it just kind of hangs out and does nothing.
It's not the sugar that ferments. It's the yeast that ferments. It's never mind.
Yeah, go.
Go ahead.
So, anyways, tonight I wanted to talk about prophecy and divination and the differences a little bit, because in paganism and witchcraft, we often talk about divination. You know, divining things to see the future, that kind of thing. And divination is the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown by supernatural means, which is just divination. Prophecy is different, though. It is just the, holy cow, seriously, dictionary? It says a prediction.
No kidding.
Like, yeah, think. And says the faculty, function, or practice of prophesying. It's like, it's like...
I always thought that there was a rule that says you're not supposed to use the word in the definition of the word.
You know, that's what I thought too. It's like, all right, so the Merriam-Webster definition online says the definition of prophecy is the inspired utterance by a prophet. Wow, that just sounds...
Does that include epiphanies?
Apparently. Wow. The function or vocation of a prophet, or the prediction of something to come. Okay, that one's a little better. I can handle that. That I gotta tell you some things. Let's see. And I'm gonna look up divination just in the same thing, just because I'm curious now. How bad is it? Divination. Blah. Not diva. Divination is the art or practice that seeks to foresee or foretell the future events or discover hidden knowledge, usually by interpretation of omens or by the aid of supernatural powers. Unusual insight or intuitive perception. All right.
Sorry, every time I think of that, I think of Nostradamus and a bowl of water with some ink in it and just a toot load of nutmeg.
You know, if you really need nutmeg to, whatever. I hear mushrooms are better.
That's not hearsay.
I also was doing some research and was reading an article that Chris Geo posted, and it was a link to his process for ayahuasca.
Yeah, I have. He's got a recipe out there called Geowaska.
Geowaska. And I gotta tell you, that's a process.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
To make it, not to experience it.
Well, that's a process too, but that's different.
I gotta tell you, I would like to experience ayahuasca.
And Lucky says, nutmeg does give messages to my ex. My ex used nutmeg all the time. Yeah, yeah. That's a toot load of nutmeg too. That's no screwing around.
You know,
I don't.
I just, it goes in my pies.
I'm done.
I'm a kitchen witch, not that kind of pie. I'm gonna throw a rock at you. Here, have a lid. I actually had something to throw this time that wouldn't break. Oh, thank you, Lucky. She put the link in there. And yeah, so you know, it's, I don't know. There's, I gotta tell you, there's I think a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to divination, because I think divination and prophecy, even though they're two different names, they're really, in a way, very, very. I mean, they're at least kissing cousins, if not the
Well,
same blasted thing.
that depends on that. I guess that depends on what kind of religion or what kind of tradition you're looking at, because I started reading that link that you sent me that I was supposed to ignore because it's not really for me. So I started reading it, of course.
Oh yeah,
And
did you see where it's from?
yeah, I see exactly where it's from.
Okay.
Um, but it talks about when God reveals things, there's four this, and when He sends you to a person through a dream, it's three this. You know what? I know a guy. And I bet you, dang it, I know a guy that we could have got on the show
Yeah.
that could have talked about this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, his name's Truth Seeker. We interviewed him on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Truth Seeker would have been good. I didn't even think about that.
Well,
but
we'll
yeah.
have to think about. We'll get
try,
back to that.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. Yeah.
But he's definitely the Abrahamic side of prophecy and divination. So.
Yeah, because generally when people talk about prophecy, it seems like they assume it's Abrahamic, and it's something in the Bible, and it's, I don't know. I think that's just the assumption. But like when Rick was talking last night, he talked about the Morgana prophecies. And that's not something that's really out there. Now, granted, part of that is because it's in a foreign language that's really hard to understand and speak because the letters don't make sense. But there's, I think, perhaps a lot of different prophecies in each of the different traditions that, if they were put together correctly, would reveal a much, much bigger picture. I mean, even like the Mayan calendar, there's some thoughts that supposedly the world was supposed to end a few years ago, according to that prophecy, even though it's the end of an age. So rather than an end of time, it's end of age.
Right.
Understanding the verbiage, because a lot of prophecy is not written clearly.
Yeah, it's mostly written in prose. A lot of it's written in prose or poem, or in a stanza or type way.
So, I feel that the written word gives form to the thought or the idea, and that's why when for instance, we've talked about this before a couple times now in the last couple weeks, with the writing of the different biblical books, that was a binding of the elder gods and allowed Yahweh to come to the forefront. So in that same respect, I feel that for prophecy, so divination for me, or to my point of view, is more personal. Prophecy is more group impact. It's a bigger impact. It's not just an individual. Generally, it's over a wider group or society rather than just one person.
Sure.
And yes, Lucky. End of the calendar doesn't mean end of time. Just you need a new calendar. I like it. Anyways, so prophecy, in order for a true foretelling to happen, it needs, the words need to be put to print. So sometimes we've had a prophecy, I think, and it wasn't written down. So did we lose the prophecy, or was it just a potential prophecy because it wasn't written down? I don't know. But I think, and oddly, this intuition or this feeling I have came from fiction rather than nonfiction. Is, I think, often there are opposing prophecies, and so they are not written in a straight.
Of time.
No, actually, it wasn't. Nope. And so, since there's opposing prophecies, the words are not always clear. The message is not like, all right, so in order for this to happen, you have to go to point A to complete objective C, and you have to include peoples 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it's not clear like that. It's muddied, and you have to interpret it. And of course, it generally, just like anything else, it only becomes clear when we get to that point, or often when we look back, in hindsight. But because some of those views are opposing and going against one another, I think that's why some of that obfuscation, is that the right word?
Obfuscation, yeah.
Comes out, and so the message isn't always clear, and that's why there's some of it's in prose and some of it's in random words and such. So, good night, Deb, by the way. Deb is excellent at divination, and I have a feeling she has a touch of prophecy as well. But that's what I think.
That would be interesting to find out. Like, what exactly does that mean?
But Deb's off to bed, so we can't ask her. We'll have to talk to her another time.
She had a busy night last night.
Yeah.
And she showed up for some of the portal today and stopped in to say
Say
hi.
hello.
So, yeah.
And Lucky makes a point up here. She said that prophets should be called seers no matter the religion, because they can see the future or foretell the future, rather than prophets. Because often, maybe that's it exactly. You can see the future, but it's not a prophecy until it's written down or it's defined more. As a thought and process, don't quote me on that one. But it's, I don't know, I think prophecy is harder to understand in a way, because it impacts society or larger groups rather than individuals. So those hallmarks or those things that might impact that group are often harder to interpret. Whereas if it's for an individual or a small group of individuals, in a divination setting, then it's the markers or the telltales are going to be more obvious. It's like, oh yes, I know someone who used to wear rosewater perfume. That made sense. Prophet is a sanctimonious blessing by the Abrahamic religion. I think it's just overused by the Yahweh or Abrahamic faiths. So Titan asks, "Are divinations are not written, just spoken like what Deb does?" I think perhaps that's partly it. Divination is spoken and not written down.
Right.
And prophecy is more written down or more formed.
I think we need to. I think if I may inject,
You get 2 minutes to inject.
Really already? Wow. Okay, so prophecy is given by the gods or the supernatural spirit. Divination is more of an intuited epiphany.
Epiphany. Okay.
So there you go. Like Nostradamus sitting down with a bucket of water.
You and Nostradamus, you guys are like BFFs, man.
Well, it's just funny.
It's the beard.
I mean, but then, you have a lot of people who, are whacked out on peyote, that are giving divination, So I don't think I think that's divination. That's kind of more divination, or mushrooms or the natural stuff, the real stuff.
All right.
As opposed to, divine interference.
All right. So Bomber says that a seer is a seer regardless of belief and should have nothing to do with religion. I agree with that, actually. Rotman says, I met a church prophet once. He came to a church. He said it would divide, and it had. And he gave a prophecy of the people there, even though he was new, and he was very, very correct. And he's had several prophecies come true because he can get visions, but sometimes kind of a useless gift is you can't change anything. You're right. I think often you cannot change much, but you can prepare a little bit. So, on that note, time out. We're going to go to break.
Okay.
And I gotta find the right button. There it is. Huh. All right, so we'll be right back, guys.
Sisters of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, all the cauldron cries, sing it unto me. Songs of Mother Goddess and the Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and I am off adventuring all by myself in the spaces between. Let's see. Hold on. Just checking. Okay. Talking about prophecies. So yeah, this article that I found that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit. It's from the Christian Truth Center, because I got to tell you, when I'm searching and doing research online, just in general, because that's where I do get a lot of my information, trying to find anything about prophecy was quite difficult. But especially prophecy that did not have anything to do with Christianity. So tarot cards are generally considered divination, Suzanne. Because they're generally specific to the person or the persons that they are kind of asking the questions. It's more specific. Anyway, so Christian Truth Center had this article. What's the difference? A dream or a vision. Okay, hold on. What's the spirit of divination? Yeah, because spirit of divination is the kingdom of darkness or an abomination to God. Okay, so basically this article says divination is an abomination, which I disagree with completely, but that's okay. It says if you get a vision or whatever, repentance, stand in the gap, point direction, revealing the will. I don't know if I can do this article. Yeah, that's just not gonna happen, which really, I was hoping it'd be better, because I was talking, it had some really good information, and then it just kind of, yeah. It's frustrating, really, because for now I'm not necessarily new at this. So here it is, hey Dee, that here I am. I'm trying to do some research to find out, and I go prophecy in paganism. It's just what I searched for, honestly. As fasting and prophecy in pagan and Christian antiquity is the first one, and the second one is an ancient pagan prophecy of Christ. It's like, seriously, I don't want anything to do with Christianity. That's not what I'm looking for. And it keeps going. And honestly, there's not a lot. Well, here we go, a little bit. Maybe. This is more one for Arabic. So Titan, a runic divination, I think, is a divination because it's specific to you and your path and what you're trying to do and accomplish. Why do I want to do this? Okay, I just really want to just... Yeah. So, continue. Thank you. So, yeah, the runes, tarot, pendulum, crystal ball, generally speaking, that's going to be divination, rather than come on, I just want this blasted article. Thank you. It's still not even a good article. Um, I dropped the Christian that article that link that I sent you.
Uh-huh.
I started reading it and trying to get into it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no.
Can you turn my mic on?
Oh,
So-
you actually want to talk?
You're talking to the Aether.
I'm
over
talking
there.
into the Aether. The Aether is not speaking.
The Aether was speaking. You just weren't hearing.
Hello,
That's called-
Aether.
That's
Aether,
called a
are you there?
prophecy.
Aether, tune in,
Anyhow.
Aether. Sorry.
So you couldn't get into it, huh? Well, yeah, it was because it's so single-sided and everything's blasphemous and heresy and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So.
Oh, so Suzanne brings up something that is kind of a poking point for me.
Oh,
She says down here, so she lives in the Bible Belt, and it's very common for most of the churches to have someone speak in tongues. Someone speaks in tongues and another person interprets it. It's supposed to be a prophecy, but really it's just creepy.
okay. Can I jump in right there?
Yes.
Okay, so here's what I understand speaking in tongues is supposed to be. Speaking in tongues is supposed to be you giving the words of God or you translating the word of God to another person who doesn't necessarily speak your language. It's not walking around babbling gibberish and then somebody supposedly translating it, because you're not talking. That's not the way it works. That's not the way any of it works. It's a poking point for me too, because so have you ever watched the movie Leap of Faith with Steve Martin? Oh my God, it was hilarious. But he was a shuckster, and you know, and that's how I feel every time somebody starts speaking in tongues. It's fake, because there's no reason for people who understand you to be speaking in tongues. There's no reason. It's like speaking. Hi, Basil. It's just not right. One of the first concerts I ever went to was a Christian concert. It was not Carmen Electra. Eric Carmen. And at the end of it, they're like, oh, does anybody want to come back and give themselves to the Lord and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like 15. You know, that's our lost age anyhow, right? You're right in that age where you're like, well, I want to see what it's all about. So they had us getting these groups of about like a dozen people with one person of their staff right in the center, right? And he's like, okay, so I want you to think of something that's going on in your life that you need help with. And, you know, it could be anything. It could be, you know, you're in trouble with the law, you're in trouble with your parents. It could be, you know, a good thing, you know, this good relationship you have and you want it to be better and you want to blah, 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 right? And then all of a sudden, you know, it's like, okay, so bow your heads and start praying. And then he starts talking, you know, he starts praying, you know, and Father, Son, Holy Ghost, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden he starts talking gibberish. And I'm like, WTF. There's no reason. I didn't understand it. Now, somebody else might have understood it. But then again, you know, only acid heads understand acid heads. It's not true. My mother went to a church. It was a charismatic church. Yes, charismatic. It was more about the charisma and the ego of the preacher, priest, brother, friar, whatever they want to call themselves. It was catering to his ego. And when they broke out into tongues, I walked the hell out. Nope, I ain't doing it.
Okay.
My phone's all whacked out again.
Well, that's because you just kind of went off on all sorts of things and now you're being punished, right?
Yes, sure. Whatever you say.
I was trying to keep a straight face and just it wasn't going to happen.
It's creepy and sad.
So here's the thing. Do I think that speaking in tongues is a possibility? Yes, I do.
When it's
However,
needed.
it's not going to be gibberish.
Gibberish.
Whatever. I'm from the Midwest. We soften our G's. It's a gibberish. Anyways, I'm going to keep those because that's awesome. It would be an actual language rather. If it's a true message, it would be from an older language, like maybe Aramaic or something like that. High German, maybe. I don't know, but it wouldn't be Babel, literally.
Like Tower of Babel. Babel?
Yeah, Tower of Babel, Babel. So, and well, Neil's right though. Some things don't translate well into English, yes. And honestly, if you are speaking in tongues, there's a potential you've been possessed, and not necessarily by a good entity. So, yeah, demonic tongues, angelic tongues. So,
and there is nobody that there's no human consciousness that could understand that at any rate.
Yeah. So it was just, I don't know. Is there a possibility that it could happen? Yes. But it wouldn't be Babel. It would sound like a language with pauses and inflections and ends of sentences and everything else.
How about a beginning, middle, and end? That would be nice.
Yeah.
Some form
it wouldn't be, the blah 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 blah. It would be something else. So, anyways.
But yes, it is creepy, and it can be very, very scary.
And so I don't feel that, generally speaking in tongues is prophetic. I think it's Babel. However, I do think that if you're receiving a true prophecy to communicate, one, you yourself would know what it is.
Right.
Even if you can't necessarily explain it in words, that the message comes to you, and you might understand the message and the language as it was given, but you may not necessarily be able to repeat it in that language because you received it in a certain language, but it's because your brain was tuned into the frequency, if you will, to receive that message. So instead of saying, well, the sky is going to be blue when this happens, because that's how the message, it may have come to you in a different language that maybe you're not familiar with. I speak just enough Spanish, for instance, to order beer.
I know how to get beat up in Spanish. I know because I've actually went to Mexico and done it. It was interesting. Lucky says, I have spoken in tongues, but not in public. And it was like a language. I think it was a Southern European. I didn't know. However, that is for you. That is information for you. I assume you understood it. It doesn't matter what the language is going out, or going in. It matters what the language is coming out. It's how you translate it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what you just said.
Yeah.
So yes, it may be coming in as a language you don't understand. However, it's coming to you, so you have some perception of how to understand it. Deb, when Deb's talking with her guides, she doesn't get words, she gets visions. They show her things. She has to sift through it and get to the pertinent parts and interpret it. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't interpret it in gibberish.
So she's the interpreter. She's not spouting gibberish for somebody else to interpret. So, and to me, that is legit. Because she's receiving the message.
Right.
She interprets. It's like, oh, she's looking at the picture and she's describing the picture over the phone.
It's not friggin' ASL.
Yes. So.
It's not friggin' ASL.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, yes, Suzanne made your 6-year-old cry. She never wants to go back. Yeah, I would.
That
uh,
stuff, that stuff scares me.
Yeah, because you don't know what they're saying.
Yeah, that stuff
Um,
scares me, and
mm-mm.
that's when and they talk about when you're in a church like this, and they're not big churches. Well, there's not a whole. There are some mega churches. There's a mega church here right down the road
Mm-hmm.
that speak in tongues. Have you ever, you go to a concert and it just, you get that intro to the song, and then all of a sudden the beat drops, and you just get electric, right? This was the opposite. This was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to raves, and there's a lot of people who can't handle bass waves, and it makes them sick. It makes them nauseous because they're not in tune at that time.
Mm-hmm.
This that's how this made me feel, and I don't get sick at raves because raves make me feel good because it's high energy. It's primal, but
Yes.
this was scary. Made me sick,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, nope, I ain't doing it. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I agree with Cameron. If the gibberish tongue isn't fake, it may possibly be possession. And yeah, the laying on of hands.
Don't touch me. I
6 feet, man.
Benny Hinn
Keep your
ticks
6 feet.
me off.
Whom?
And if Oral Roberts ever touches me,
Oh, okay. Snake churches. Yeah. the-
snake shakers, yeah. They're
Okay.
they're very very revivalist, very Baptist.
Okay. Them folks are crazy.
No, they have
Um,
snake flu. H1SO.
They're down with the serpent.
Okay, so
Okay. So,
I'm sorry if I offended anybody, but
well, I told you what I wanted to talk about, and you asked me what kind of material I had, and I didn't have much to start with, but I knew that you would bring a presence and an opinion that we could talk about. So,
sometimes my opinions aren't very.
educated.
No, sometimes my opinions aren't very well received.
Okay.
I'm really enjoying Lucky right now because she knows how I feel.
You know what? You and
Oh
Lucky-
yeah, snake shakers are Pentecostals. Yes, it's the
Oh.
it's the fire and brimstone that are Baptists, the rapturous things like that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think you and Lucky could sit down, share a pitcher, have a couple pints, and y'all would be just
As long as we agree not to be mad at each other when we leave, because that's going to happen. It's
Yeah.
differing views, but that's the way it is. But no, I mean, I think Lucky and I feel a lot of the same way about
Mhm.
this particular kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
so. Yeah. I think prophecy, it does happen.
I
100% it does happen. It's
Right.
not as prevalent as people you might think it is.
right.
I think there's been perhaps too much fiction out there that prophecy shows the way. Even Lord of the Rings had some prophecy to it.
Yeah,
I mean,
when they were in when they were in Sylvan Woods, and they were and she was looking into the. Now, was that prophecy or is that divination? Because she poured the water into the bowl, and Frodo looked into it.
so
and he
Frodo's divination, but she had already seen it. So for
No, she had seen herself as the one true God.
So yeah, that part was divination, the potential of it. But I think it was more prophecy. She knew that it was a fork in the path, and but it was divination was a tool to help determine which fork in the path they were going to take at that point. But I know most fantasy type fiction has some sort of prophecy in it. And if you read a lot of it, you start to think, oh, okay, well, all of these alternate religions are not, or a lot of them say their witchcraft or their magic or etc. etc. You start to wonder, especially if you're moving or looking at paganism for the first time or becoming a witch, after you've read a lot of fiction. You're like, so where's all the prophecy? I thought there's going to be more prophecy here. And that's not the way it is. Now,
No.
there is prophecy that is specific, I think, to the different deities and the different traditions, but it's not this big grandiose pagan prophecy or map.
Well, that's like Rick was talking last night. The Morgan gave 2 prophecies. One was a present tense prophecy about the war, about pushing away the hello. Can you help me out here?
I'm sorry.
The Irish. So it's an Irish lore, and and it was given at the time of this particular armed conflict, and then she gave the second prophecy.
Yeah. So the first prophecy was a current events type thing.
Right.
This is what is happening now and how it's going to lay out, and this is
right.
This is your world now.
But it only affected those people
within that culture.
Right.
Rather than, and it was their entire culture, is the Irish Celts. Now, when, and then the future prophecy, I think that has a bigger impact, in part, if for no other reason than the descendants of that society are now spread all throughout the world. And I think even, and a lot of them still believe or still follow that faith and that tradition. So even though they're spread all throughout the world,
yeah, but see that disseminated through the centuries with the different people who, the people who left to find new, or the explorers or whatever, those went with them. That's what they're for. But it was an effect of their culture. It was an effect to their culture, as opposed to the entire world. So.
So, but I think I think the different. I have no idea what they're talking. What's this bird?
Suzanne's husband has a bird that is it does not like her, apparently. And apparently it's staring at her.
Put a blanket over it.
Yeah, so big birds like that are
what kind of bird is it?
I'm not sure. They were talking about an African grey earlier, but now a cockatoo. So maybe I'm not sure which one.
All right. So, anyways,
there was an ancient prophecy given in Africa. It was said that there would be 2 metal rods that would bring fire, and mid would have liller rods that would shoot fire and kill. Okay, metal
and
rods
2
being
large
guns.
And the 2 large metal rods would take people away. So that one actually sounds more like spaceship, honestly. I mean, in reality, to me, that one says spaceship, because 2 large metal rods would take people away. There's metal boats are more contemporary than maybe that. I don't know when that particular
Train
trains.
tracks brought trains.
Oh yes,
that
trains.
took people and white men with
I
guns.
forget about trains, but yeah, trains or spaceships. I like spaceships. But yeah, yeah, I think in a way, each society, each culture has some sort of thing that's relatively horrible that's going to happen to it. It's a testing process to see if you can go through the crucible and come out the other side stronger, or or weaker, or not at all. And so perhaps for the society that prophecy, that was the crucible that they had to go through. And I'm not saying that it was a good thing, because it wasn't. Oh, hold on. Time out again. Did you know it's break time already?
Yes, because I watched the clock. I'm a clock watcher. I'm a clock watcher.
So weird. All right. So we're going to go to break because we've been here for an hour. And Dee says give you a channel of your very own. Huh.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll be right back, you
It's
guys.
too much work.
It's not that much work.
No, I think she's talking about the bird.
Oh, I could see that. Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are adventuring into the spaces between. It's not acceptable.
Oh, I told you I might.
Because it's catchy, doggone it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Not really.
No, you're not really. So, prophecy. Trying to find. I had some material, honest. Oh, yeah, Lucky, you're right. So Lucky goes, I think it's amazing how the church people get to say whatever they want about pagans, but if a bioweapon is loosed and the government shuts down the churches, hear them wail. Because they're upset because they're sad they're missing out on their... What's the word I'm looking for? Get-togethers.
Their seventh day Sabbath.
Yeah, their socializing.
That's the thing, though, is there's a lot of people who believe being Christian is just going to church on Sunday, and some are going to confession.
Mm-hmm.
Observing that seventh day Sabbath. And then during the rest of the week, they can pretty much screw off anything they want. But then there are those who try to practice what they preach, but I find that those ones turn out to be a bit judgmental.
Yep, they sure do.
Because if you're not practicing what they're preaching, it's not okay.
Yeah.
That's like when I talked earlier. No, I didn't mention it. I mentioned it on the portal. I was at work the other day, and somebody comes in and, why aren't you wearing a mask? And I just wanted to look at her and say, why aren't you wearing a mask? Don't preach at me to put a mask on when you're not willing to do it yourself.
Yeah, really.
And if the virus has gone airborne, it's not going to friggin' help anyhow.
Yeah, it's on your clothes.
So, but, that's the self-righteous nature of people, though.
Mm-hmm.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm. So, I think when it comes to prophecy, why perhaps there's not as much pagan prophecy today as there's Christian or Abrahamic prophecy. We'll just leave it at Abrahamic because that covers a lot of different groups. I think it's because in early Christianity, at least, the monks were the ones who were writing things down, and they changed the storyline, and they took it from a pagan prophecy to a Christian prophecy. They transmogrified it. Because there was a lot of, and I'm not saying completely that's all they did, because they may not have, but I think there's a lot of theft, if you will, cultural theft of paganism, appropriation, yeah, by other faiths to lessen the desire to be a pagan and make it more socially acceptable to follow those other paths.
Right. Well, think of tomorrow. What's tomorrow?
Easter. It's Easter Sunday.
Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Samhain, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there you have it in a nutshell. 2 words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an adoption of many different holidays and such. We know that, or just because historical fact, there's historical literature and studies done how they, specifically Christianity, adopted and the different holidays, not because they didn't have their own, but they wanted to make it easier for the pagans to celebrate the Christian holidays, and then it was just kind of a gradual takeover. It's kind of like
blaming Constantine for everything.
Well, no, it's like if you drop a frog in a pot of boiling water, he's gonna hop out right away. He's gonna be pissed because it's a boiling pot of water, and oh my gosh, it's too hot. However, if you put a frog in a pot of cold water
That
and you
is not
slowly heat
true.
it up,
That is not true. But I understand your
yeah,
point.
but yeah, I mean the.
Well, it's just like this whole pandemic thing.
Hmm.
You know, first they say, "Oh my gosh, there's something killing people in China." Oh my gosh, it's moving across into Europe. Oh my gosh, it's in Russia. It's coming across and now it's killing people in Britain. We've been softened up.
Hmm.
It's the softening process.
Yes, exactly.
That's the whole thing with the frog. You know, they soften the frog into the boiling water, which isn't true. A frog will get out of, if it can, it'll get out of boiling water, just like a lobster. That's why you put a lid on the lobster. Anyhow, so, but yeah, I mean, it's a softening process.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, we've got to make it easy for the heathens. They don't understand anything.
Well, they were just going to celebrate their own holidays anyways.
Well, that's
And so it just instead of them celebrating their own holidays back then and then going to the church or not going to the church, um, it was easier to kind of overlap the holidays. Hey, well, if you're going to celebrate Ostara, you should come to the church. We've got this big building, and you just come hang out there. And then you do that for a couple of years, and suddenly they're not.
it's an accepted norm.
Yeah. So, okay. So Lucky goes animal torture discussions. All right. So, if you want to soften a stick of butter, it is better to leave it out at room temperature for a period of time, and it becomes soft, and you can use it to bake. However, if you put it in the microwave and you hit 1 minute to soften it up, you're going to explode your stick of butter all over the microwave.
What's green and red and goes really fast?
Yeah. So, hey, MCAT.
So you can also microwave a quart jar of water. You microwave a quart jar of water,
Mm-hmm.
dump the water out, put it over the stick of butter on a countertop, and let it sit for a minute.
Either way, you're going to warm it up gradually rather than just put it in the microwave for a
Right.
minute. It's going to pop, and you got drippy
So
butter hanging off the
that
ceiling.
that is definitely one way to that's definitely the way to do it. But also there's one thing you always have to remember, and it's always the victor that writes the history.
Oh, absolutely.
That's just the end of the
Mhm.
end all of it right there. To the victor go the spoils, and they get to write the histories. They also get to erase the histories.
Yes, they do. I have a feeling that a lot of those histories are written, though, and in the basement of the basilica. Or, yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah. I would love to get in there. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's heresy.
No, it's
Blasphemer. You're a blasphemer.
it's a truth. Yeah. I think I really do think that they probably recorded it just because scientists originally came from Christianity. A lot of them.
Well,
We'll go with a lot of them, and because they wanted to debunk things and it just made sense, and so. And then they became the bad guys because science is bad, and it's just
it's counter to God.
right. It's just complicated now, and totally lost where I was going with that. Oh, it sounded so good. I started strong.
You did. Yeah, it sounded great.
Oh.
Anyhow.
Anyway, so yeah, Vatican hides a lot. So, but because they're seekers of knowledge. That's why scientists were part of the church originally, seekers of knowledge. And I think the church, in a way, was a preserver of knowledge, the Catholic Church, not so much because they want to share the knowledge, but because they are greedy and they like to keep the knowledge. So I think there's, in the super secret libraries, there's a lot of stuff in there that,
Right.
that people would like to be able to sit and read.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's probably caches of bits of knowledge, even lost knowledge, like Library of Alexandria type knowledge,
Mhm.
and even farther back than that. But I think there's a lot of bastions of knowledge that haven't been made common knowledge.
Dun-dun-dun. So Titan asks, are there any prophecies that you or I subscribe to personally?
I'm a heathen.
That doesn't mean you don't have any prophecies.
No, it just means that I leave it for pagans to figure out. We'll go do your rituals, and then we'll go have a beer. You guys, thanks. Nice to see you guys again. See you next, Ostara.
The beer that we make, yeah. Okay.
Well, no, heathens make pretty darn good beer. There's a lot of German heathens,
Truth. So, I don't have a specific prophecy that I believe in or that I follow. I feel that I guess it's my own intuition, if you will. I feel just like Rick was saying yesterday, we're coming to the end of an age.
Right.
And endings are often not just closing a book. Sometimes they're quite messy.
And painful.
And often new beginnings are messy and painful. If you've ever seen a birth of anything, messy and painful is truth. So, you know, end of an age, I think. I don't know if it's really a prophecy or just what I feel. Yeah, it's not really a prophecy. It's just my belief.
You know, yeah, but that's but that would be
it's more.
Would that be more of a divination, as you said it earlier? Because and like Rick said, you know, he's not sure why he was literally tapped by the Morrigan, but you know, but then again, you know, I could say I've been given a personal prophecy through that dream I had. You know, so that's a personal prophecy, though. That's not a divination. That was a prophecy. It was given by who I believe is a deity.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, that's what supposedly God does. Yahweh comes down and presents himself to you in the form of the Megatron and gives you this message: you shall do what I say, Noah. And that's how you receive prophecy. Now, how you disseminate that prophecy is something different. But this one was my personal prophecy. It said that I was coming to the end of my age, and that's it. I'm coming of age, you know.
Oh, you're grown up.
Oh, yay! He did it! But, you know, I mean, and so, you know, being tapped by a deity, that's interesting. It's moving.
You don't forget it.
You don't forget it. You don't forget anything. I remember details of this dream pretty well, and this has been at least a year now. And I think, yeah, that's somebody when I told this story a week or two ago said that's how you know it's real, is because you haven't forgotten anything.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, that's not necessarily I follow a prophecy, but that is a prophecy to me. You know, it's that knowledge that, you know, I can breathe easy, I can let it go, I've learned what I'm supposed to do, I've achieved. Now hopefully I just get to, you know, enjoy the rest of this life, you know. That would be way cool, Junior. So no, there's not a prophecy I live by. It's both sad. What I've experienced is both sad and wonderful all at the same time. So that's my answer to that question.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Neil, I looked that up, and yeah, the Google dictionary just said divination or prophecy is a prediction. Merriam-Webster says it's the art or practice that seeks to foresee or foretell the future events or discover hidden knowledge, usually by interpretation of omens or by the aid of supernatural powers. So, yeah, there's Nostradamus, Mother Shipton. There's other. I think there are some contemporary prophets, but here's the thing. If someone were to step up and stand on their proverbial soapbox today and say, I am a prophet and this is what is going to happen, they would be the laughingstock and ridiculed from here until high noon. I mean, it would just be redunculous. Mostly because people don't want to believe in a prophecy, I don't think. There's not enough reason for people to put themselves out there yet. They're probably writing down the prophecies for the new age, or for the next age. Because I'm sure there are plenty of prophecies out there for that age. It just we haven't read them yet or heard them yet, because it's not time.
Right. Well, see, and that kind of goes to something Suzanne just asked. She says, do you think the gods and goddesses are going to step back in? Now.
Yes.
We've been saying it for a couple weeks now, actually, so you may not have heard this, but, well, why don't you tell it from your biblical,
so
your Bible
example. Suzanne, my interpretation, and it's just me, it's my belief set, I guess, and I feel that the written word gives form to the supernatural or the unknown. And so when the books of the Bible were written, all of them, even the ones that are not shared, it bound, or those books all bound the elder gods, and they were no longer as capable of being present in today's world as they once were. And instead, Yahweh stepped up, and the Abrahamic faiths then became the dominant religions of the age. And now, in today's society, the Bible has been translated multiple times. So the original word that people believe has changed, because what was once written in Aramaic, if the door is closed, thou shalt not pass, the way is shut. Instead, maybe it says, oh, it's a green door. The meaning of the words has changed, and so the binding or the restrictions on the elder gods have eased, and so as those fail, the elder gods will be back in among us. And I think there will be a bit of a backlash, honestly, on those with the Abrahamic faiths. Not so much because the pagans and witches and heathens are going to be like, oh, you bad people, you. I think it'll be more a side effect of the elder gods returning and just being mad. I mean, if you'd been locked up for a couple of millennia and only being able to reach through dreams, wouldn't you be kind of grouchy? I mean, look at how we're all locked down and we can only talk to each other online or through the phone or
through magical memes.
Through magical memes or whatever.
Magical memes.
Magical memes, yes. And the number of people getting grouchy about it is quite high. So, I think even though the deities take the long view, some of them are going to be pretty grouchy about it.
Right.
So, I really think that the Bible in its originality or the origin of the Bible,
The Bible.
Bible, the Beaver.
I was
The
about to
Bible.
say bow to the beaver.
The Bible was a binding on the elder gods to prevent them from a direct interaction with humanity,
Right.
and that's easing. And nowadays, I think, they have the PC Bible out now, the politically correct. It's he, she, they, and it's so vanillaized.
Vanillized.
Yeah, exactly. It's
on a
been
roll.
iced completely. So, I really think that those bindings have eased, and people, and the
So, because of the watering down of the language of the Bible, the changes, the lost words,
mhm,
the changed meanings of each word,
mhm,
the lost in translation,
yes,
has loosened the bonds of the veil, and the veil is lifting.
mhm,
And the veil is what is keeping back the elder gods.
mhm,
Now that the elder gods are. It was an interesting thing you mentioned. We were talking about last night with Rick about Hecate and the Morrigan, regarding Hecate helping bind the Titans, and then the Morrigan shaking those bounds loose.
mhm.
Um, and so, I, we uh, so for that being said, maybe the Morrigan was one of the first ones that was able to slip that binding, and is creating that because she's the war maker. She's the one that brings the conflict for good purpose.
Well, and it may be because the Morgan has a multifaceted aspect.
Mhm.
The Bive and Matcha and the Morgan
Yeah,
themselves.
the main, the mother, and the crone.
Not necessarily.
Well, ish.
Yeah. Um, those are actually generally associated with Hecate rather than
Okay.
the Morgan. But
Alright.
anyways,
So you're talking specifically about the battle crows.
yeah.
Okay.
Because the Morrigan has multiple aspects, maybe it was harder to bind her. Because it's like, well, what aspect are you binding? And so I think those with multiple facets
Mhm.
have slipped free first because it was harder to hold them. And others that were more um,
Singular.
Singular, yeah, like Zeus, for instance.
Right.
He really wasn't multifaceted. He's just Zeus. Um, he's not necessarily going to be the first one to be freed. He may not be the last one because of strength, but it's pretty easy to bind someone who's, like, I'm a pillar. That's all I am. It's like,
Right.
cool. I'm going to put you in the dirt and hold you still.
Right.
Whereas, well, I'm a pillar, or maybe I'm fire.
Right.
Um,
So, but I mean, I think those are great ways. As a matter of fact, if you think about it also, well, okay, no, that doesn't apply. Anyhow, but I think that's a great way to think of it, So, so back to Suzanne's question,
mhm.
are they coming back? We believe
Yes, I believe they're
collectively,
coming back.
slightly differently ways, but yeah, they're definitely going to step back in. I don't necessarily think that the Abrahamic face will be any worse off than anybody else. They may end up, on the persecution list, just like pagans and heathens and witches and
Mm.
things like that. Will there be burning at the stakes? No, we're beyond that. We've moved past that.
Well, I would like to think, but
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yes, you're right. There would be a certain segment of the population that would maybe do something like that. As horrible as it is human nature. But those are the ones that you don't want to. You don't want to be around. You want to stay clear of those folks. But yes, they're coming back. They're not going to be. They will be vengeful because that's a lot of them have that aspect. However, I don't think it'll be as horrible as that. But I think there will be a backlash because of the breaking of the binding.
Mm-hmm.
It's all intent.
All intent, and I think perhaps there will be more magic in the world too when the binding is fully broken, because I think some of that was bound up as well, and I think that's why there's more and more people are having gifts nowadays. So I'm gonna put a pin in it. We're gonna come back later because we are at our last break. Can you believe it? This is just
like he says, buy ammo, folks. I'm not burning at the stake again.
Yep. All right. It's been a fast night, so we'll see you guys in a bit.
As we will, so mote it. Tears of the shining moon, heaven, earth, and sea, I call upon you in this hour, bring magic unto me. Brothers, oh, the cauldron cries, it singeth unto me. Songs of Mother Goddess and the Father in the tree.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we're off adventuring into the spaces between. And if you weren't paying attention, you would have just totally missed Don being topless without the beanie. He's missing his cover.
There we go. Now. Are you decent?
That was funny.
So,
so Suzanne mentioned that someone was recently hung down in the South. Oh wow, it's a bleep loop.
Was it a vigilante hanging, or what? It must have been a vigilante type hanging.
Probably. And unfortunately, people are assholes.
Yeah, I mean, there is going to be that segment of the population.
And there are going to be people who refuse to accept change, and there are going to be those that are always judgmental of others. No matter how enlightened we may be as a group, individually there's going to be the judgmental folks, and remember the more people in a group, the lower the IQ.
Right.
Yeah, you really do have to be careful about being different in some cultures, and in some regions of the U.S.
Well, it's not just some cultures. It's yeah. I think you're in more danger of being different in some cultures.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't live in the South, but like I said, it doesn't matter where you are. There are those assholes that will do that girl here in town that took that baseball bat to that other girl, put her in the hospital, and then flaunted it on social media.
Mm-hmm. What was the reason for that?
She hurt her feelings.
Oh,
and so she beat her with a bat, put her in the hospital for a while. I mean, there are people like that, and it's unfortunate. I would like to remind everybody that it is certainly legal in the state of Idaho to carry a concealed weapon without a license, as long as you retain your ability to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't piss me off. But she also asked the question about
difference between Nordic Greek and Roman gods.
About the Nordic gods versus Greek. Okay.
So yeah, they're all different. Zeus and Odin are two entirely different individuals. Two different societies. What's Zeus's counterpart or Zeus is both Greek and Roman.
Oh. I don't know. I don't know. Zeus is Greek. I don't know. I don't know.
I think he's Zeus. But anyway, so I'd have to look that up.
They're in some ways. So the Greek and Romans have a shared pantheon.
Just different names.
Just different names, slightly different aspects, maybe. But I think the Nordics have their pantheon, and that's the way it is. The Irish have their pantheon too, so they have a separate pantheon. There is images of Norse tradition there, Norse pantheon there, but they have their own.
Right, and some of the elder gods are even more elder.
Right.
For instance, Hecate is mentioned in
a creation story.
a creation story. She's mentioned with just in the Greek and Roman, the Celtic,
Hmm.
the Nordic. She's in.
Explain the Nordic.
I think she's in the Nordic, isn't she? You're the
We're-
heathen. Um. Anyways, yeah, Jupiter. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
that's
what
right.
it is.
Jupiter. Yes.
Thanks, Dee. And I'm a bad pagan. Um,
Well, it's not your pantheon.
it's not my
your
pantheon.
faith.
So you know, it's I don't know. That just the Hecate. Sorry, I need coffee. You know, is been around for much longer than the some of the other deities, I think. And I think there are a few deities that are in that same generation.
Oh, let's go to Egypt too,
Mhm.
because that would align with Isis
Mhm.
and Zeus and Jupiter
Mhm.
with Osiris.
Yeah.
But they have their differences
Yep.
because they all have a very similar creation story.
Yes, Steve, bad pagan. Well, then there's the Aztec, the Maya,
Right.
the Olmec,
And those are all totally different.
Yeah.
Those are different than these ones. Yeah.
or Olmec. Yeah, but they all have slightly different stories, and so yeah, Zeus and Thor are thunder deities or storm deities. Yeah, so there's some similarities between
that-
all the different pantheons.
But that puts Zeus below Odin.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that in mind.
He's the Allfather. I know that one. But so yeah, there is some cross purposes, cross
Common purposes.
common purposes, common traits, commonalities between the different
Commonalities.
deities and the different pantheons, of course, because people are people are people are people,
No,
regardless.
Odin and Zeus are two separates.
Um, so, yes, Neil. The different cultures identify the different or help define the different traits of the deities within the pantheon. I think, in part, I mean, there's an expectation that, certain deities have certain powers and authorities within the pantheon itself.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm losing my mind here. So, Peter, yeah. There's quite a few different words that we say nowadays that would not have come about.
Well, and that has to go with the watering down and the lost in translation of the binding of, or with the idea of a binding of the elder gods.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because that's right. It wasn't Jehovah.
Mm-hmm.
There was no J.
Yeah.
It was an H.
Exactly.
And
Yahweh.
like you mentioned that earlier.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Sonia has a good point too. There's an argument that all the gods are the same God. That's why some traditions, just honor the god and the goddess,
Or the Lord and the Lady.
or Lord and the Lady, and they just leave it at that. That way, they're honoring the two primary parts of the divine, rather than trying to split it up into the different pantheons.
Right.
So it's because pantheons are messy. They have they have relationships, and it's a society in and of itself. So yeah, it can. Naysay, I don't know the seventh fire prophecies. Do you know the seventh fire prophecies? I will look it up real quick. Because seventh Seven deadly sins. What have you been looking up on this computer?
Why that doesn't even make sense that it would pop up on my computer.
Anishinaabe. Oh goodness. Let's see. According to this article, I'm not sure who it's by, Naysay. Hold on. Let me see if I can find the author. It's just by sevenfires.org.
He says, oh, no, that's MCAT. Never mind. Sometimes we don't need to say what MCAT's saying. Hi, MCAT.
But let's see. I'm just trying to read. Oh, that's actually
You spend a lot of time in.
I know, I really do. And I'm trying to fix that, but I can't read and talk at the same time often. They say this is one I'll probably have to go into at another time just because I want to read it and understand it before I talk about it. But it's the seven fires of the Anishinaabe is a specific prophecy for the Ojibwe people. And there's I don't know, it's really interesting reading. I just glanced at it real quick, so I'll have to come back to it, and if I had another break, I would read it over break, but we only have like 14 minutes left, which is crazy.
Lucky, can you also send that to her messenger?
Yes, please, thank you. Yep, that's the one I'm looking at.
Oh, is it?
Yep, I think so.
So anyhow, but I think along with the watering down of the bindings, as we've talked about, there's been a lot of watering down the names of the deities.
Well, yeah, making them easier for people to say, or the new cultures to say.
Digesting. It's the digesting of it. I think the only reason the Romans really decided, okay, dude, you got to get down. I can't sit like that. The only reason the Romans did what they did was because they weren't a very, well, no, I can't say that. I can't say they weren't a very artistic. They weren't very, they were more right-brained than left-brained. Can't really say that because there's some awesome Roman architecture and things like that. However, they were more governmental.
They're very, very much a war race.
Well, so were the Greeks, but so basically they stole the pantheon and changed it to fit their need. But there you go. The dog runs the show. No, the dog does not run the show.
He thinks he does.
He thinks he does.
No, I don't know that really. So, Suzanne asked about Ragnarok.
I don't think it has to do with Ragnarok, no. Unless Ragnarok is just another word, with the idea that the wolf eats the moon. That's a bit different. That's more of an ending. We're talking about more of an ending of an age right now instead of ending of the world. However, what would be the modern image of the wolf eating the moon? What would be the modern,
And is it moon or is it satellite? Because we have scads of satellites up there.
Well, the moon is a satellite.
Exactly my point. So if it was a satellite that's being eaten, is it a specific one? We just had a temporary moon vacate or move out of its orbit. It really wasn't a true moon, but it was a little bitty asteroid. And
so no, I don't. Unless somehow the Ragnarok could be translated into what's happening now. I really haven't thought too much into it. But I mean, it could. Ragnarok could be the end of an age and the beginning of a new one, and the turmoil within, because there's nothing that says that, there's nothing that really says that everything was destroyed. It only mentions that the home of the gods were destroyed. So
And, maybe we had a second moon once upon a time and that's what was destroyed. Or, that was part of the binding. Who knows? There's a lot of history that was not written down that we don't see because, well, hey, the victors wrote the history.
that's right. Yeah.
So, anyway, so prophecy. I think there is a lot more pagan prophecy out there than what we know, even within the different traditions. And I think divination and prophecy are kind of hand in hand. Often, I think we use divination or need to use divination to understand the prophecy a little bit more.
I think you could also say divination and ritual are rather similar as well, because a divination is trying to look into the future, where a ritual is asking for, in some ways, favor for the future. So I think you're trying to affect the future with a ritual, and you're trying to see the future with a divination. But I say prophecy is different than both of those. So, could you divine into the future and then do a ritual to change the outcome? Well, that's easy enough just by going left instead of right. When you feel that gut feeling to do something, do it, because your gut feeling is going to take you in the right direction. It's when you fight it that you end up in these bad situations, like bad divinations, things like that. So when it feels right, do it.
Okay.
So anyhow, sorry.
Nope, you're fine. I wouldn't have you on if I didn't want you on here for your 2 cents, your 3 cents.
Lucky says, kind of curious this discussion. After Trump starts the Space Force, perhaps they are seeing more of why folks need to go to space. It's funny because I just read an article about them wanting to put radio telescopes on the moon.
I also read an article, now whether or not it was
of
true
course,
or
grain of salt.
That Trump signed an executive order to get people back to the moon and start doing mining on the moon.
Yeah.
I mean, last night we were talking about mining and how it harms the Earth. If we start mining the moon for some of those elements that we could find on Earth, but it's too dangerous to the people of Earth, what does that do to the moon? How does that affect the Earth?
Well, there's oral tradition passed down through some native, some First Nations, that says that the moon has not always been there. The moon appeared at some point. So if the First Nations were here and remember a tradition that far back of the moon not being here, how did the moon become such an integral part of the Earth? The moon controls our water. It helps stabilize atmosphere. It helps stabilize the movement of the crust, things like that, because it's kind of a counterbalance to some of the forces of nature. Because if it was removed, supposedly we'd all die. Period. We'd have 2012 epidemic.
So are you
like
saying the moon was a terraforming event?
That's a good way to put it. But no, because if the First Nations remember a time when there was no moon, there was no need to terraform it, for us at least, but for something else. So something else could live here. Maybe it just added some changes that they needed in their habitat to make our Earth fit their
needs. So, yeah.
Anyhow.
It's amazing how we start off pagan and end up in space, huh? My broom does not leave this orbit. I'm sorry. It's not.
Just depends on
Space
what you
sound.
say to her.
Such a jerk.
Bang, zoom to the moon!
Yep. So, yeah. I think there's a lot more, like I said, prophecy out there than has been written down or is known. And I still think that using divination is a way to understand the prophecy more.
Mm-hmm.
So, prophecy's the map, divination's the directions.
It's the guy at the gas station. Oh, you take a left at the stump over there. I think
Okay,
that's
Uncle
more
Louie.
Yeah.
So
It's Colonel George sitting over there. He'll tell you.
right. So future shows we'll talk about the seventh fire of the Anishinaabe, and I heard there's a request for some angel numbers, and talking about angel numbers, so that will be interesting. So that'll be an upcoming show. And my broom does not fly. No, I drive a car. It's easier.
You know, we could probably. Oh, well, a lot of these things could be answered on the Patreon.
They could be answered on the Patreon. Yes, you're right.
So
More in depth.
but anyhow.
So yeah, the Patreon, while it does not, I don't actually have it written up 100%, but yeah, my belief structure, I guess, when it comes to, I've stated it a few times now verbally, but that'll be lined out in word form, putting the thought to words to give it form and shape and substance, and that'll be on the Patreon. So yeah, if you want to check that out. Got some poetry there on the Patreon, and some of the 3-cent videos that I've done in the past that did not get into YouTube world will be on the Patreon also. So there's some other good benefits. I think there's coupon codes for getting into the store too. So they're supposed to be anyways. Whether or not they're showing up consistently, I'm not sure. So
Well, you know, and that's a good way to you know, the Patreon's a good way to be able to get more personalized information.
Mhm.
You know, so.
Yep.
But and maybe a little more, you know, in depth with certain
Yep.
personages. So, anyhow.
Yep. It is done. It's patreon.com/the spaces between. Well, it's not done, but it's there. You can go to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to start.
I need to put some more material. Yeah, so the 3-cent videos that haven't been published onto the YouTube will be there. And let's see. Oh, what did we do the other day that...
Oh, that video? The live stream?
Yeah, the random live stream. Is it that bad?
Oh, the sound on that's horrible. Oh my God, I opened it up and took out I extracted the audio and I looked at that WAV file and oh my God, it was just like, oh, I don't know what I can do with this. It was pretty bad.
So random live videos and that kind of thing will end up being in the Patreon also, just because why not? They may be live and you may see them in the moment, but the archive, they'll actually be in the Patreon. So anyways, 2 minutes Turkish.
2 minutes, Turkish. It was 2 minutes 5 minutes ago, George. How about
Thank
them
you, Bummer.
sausages? How about them sausages, George? 2 minutes, Turkish. I love that movie.
Someday we should sit down and start tallying up how many movie quotes and references we make throughout a 2-hour show.
Oh, we're pretty
We're kind of bad.
poppy. Sometimes we're more poppy than the princess in the Trolls movie. But but you know, I mean, it's part of our culture, so you know.
It's just the sound of silence, huh?
Oh boy. Okay, so get your stuff out of the way.
All right. It's wildepaisley@gmail.com. WILDEPAISLEY @gmail.com. Patreon is patreon.com/the spaces between. Etsy is etsy.com/shop/Monarch Mountain Studio, or MTN for mountain. And I'm working with a local artist to add some more stuff to the store in Patreon.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm trying to click. And so we're actually going to be changing that up slightly. It'll be monarchmountainstudios.com, or excuse me, .store. So that'll be here coming up. Oh, come on, you blasted thing. So there. Got it. And this one. Copy and paste. Oops. I did that one twice. Ha! So merry meet and merry part and merry meet again, and I hope you guys all have a very lovely week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy your quarantine.
Good night!
Good night all.